Good evening, ghouls and fiends, or wherever you are in the world, whether it's daytime, evening, whatnot. My name is Tezz, I'm the host of the Ministry of Horror, and we are back for a very brief episode. I'm not going to go the entire length of my honeymoon without doing an episode of the show, but here we are, and what a place to do it. So, as I've just mentioned, I'm currently on my honeymoon. Me and my wife, Victoria, got married in Vegas and are currently travelling across the country and having a blast. What that has meant is the horror content's probably been a little slower than you may be anticipating. But don't fret. We have an episode today. It's going to be a short one, but the location isn't the Ministry of Horror HQ. This is the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, America. And you may be familiar with that name, but if not, you're probably familiar with the works of Stephen King, the film by Stanley Kubrick, and also the miniseries by whose name I forget, but I don't really like a lot of his films, which was shot at this hotel, the basis for The Shining. That's right. That was based on Stephen King's stay here, the last day before it closed for the winter. We're going to talk a little bit about the history of that a little bit later on. And also, obviously, my love for Stephen King and his works, especially The Shining. It's not my favourite, you know, it's up there. It's definitely top 3, top 5? Top 5. It's definitely top 5. Anyway, this wouldn't be the Ministry of Horror without some form of news and or reviews. Now, there aren't going to be any reviews because I've not watched any horror films for the last week. Funny that. I've been travelling across America. So to give you a bit of an update, we started off in Vegas for the week. Had an incredible time, an awesome stag do, and Victoria had an awesome hen do, culminating in our wedding, which was incredible. From there, we road tripped out of Las Vegas to Zion, saw Zion National Park, drove through there. I say drove, I haven't done a lick of driving. I've been quite terrified. So I've been very fortunate that Victoria has been behind the wheel and has been the captain of our ship and done a great job. We went through Zion. We then ended up getting to our I don't know what you'd call it. I think the name's like a castellas, but it's basically like a lodge in Zion. Up in the hills, we had a fire pit, which we didn't use because we couldn't get any firewood anywhere because it was a Sunday. We also had a hot tub, which was awesome, and just the night sky, wildlife, brilliant. From there, we then headed off to Moab, stopped off in Moab, and I bought a book, which I think I've left in the car. But of course, I found a bookshop, I'm going to buy a book. We met a little chihuahua, which was very sweet. And we had a little walk down the high street, bought some coffee, had some great breakfast. I had a big old cinnamon roll, which did not disappoint from the name. We then drove down Potash Road, which is just incredible. I mean, living in England my whole life and only briefly going to America through some touristy areas, you really don't get a grasp for what America has to offer. So we're still very early in our honeymoon, but what we've seen so far has been incredible. Follow socials such as Tezz Elliott or Ministry of Horror, or of course our special Instagram account, Vegas and Valentine's. You'll see the tags out there on social medias. Follow those, you'll get all the updates. From Moab, we stayed in a glamping tent under the stars, which was interesting. It was pretty cool. I mean, the night sky was incredible. The tent experience was interesting, fire-related. We didn't burn anything, but could have come close. And we then went and saw the sunrise at Arches National Park, which was just wow. I never thought I'd find myself being a nature person, but after visiting the Grand Canyon in Vegas for the day, or just outside of Vegas, really got an appreciation for that, and just kind of getting out there. Anyway, moving along, because this is a short episode, we are focusing on horror, but I always give you a little bit of a preamble, and since I've done no video gaming or watched any horror films, this is what you're going to get. Moving on from Moab, we found ourselves heading towards Colorado, which is probably my new favourite state from everywhere that I've visited in America. We stayed with some family friends up in their, I can't call it a cabin, it's a mansion basically, up in the hills, where we got to do ATV riding, which is incredible. I want an ATV. And then spent the afternoon shooting a variety of awesome guns. Again, footage will go when I have time to edit. Footage will go on Tezz Elliott and where it's horror related, Ministry of Horror. Of course, also the other mentioned tags. That's then led us to today. We drove, again, I say we, Victoria drove us over the Rocky Mountain, through the Rocky Mountain National Park. We had an elevation of 12,000 feet above sea level, which is just incredible. Very cold. There's snow up there. So for, the 6th of October or 9th of October, there's already snow. But an incredible experience going through there, which then led us to Estes Park, which has led us to the Stanley Hotel. So I want to take a moment just to thank the people at the Stanley Hotel who have very graciously allowed me to fly my drone. So yes, I fly a drone now. We picked up a drone about a week before leaving for America. I was very hesitant, very much against it, because I did not want the pressure of flying a drone. I'm having a blast. Fortunately, the one that we've got is quite idiot-proof. So touch wood, I've not broken it yet, but we've got some incredible footage, and it's been a lot of fun flying that. But we got to Estes Park, we've got to the Stanley Hotel. And this is the location where Tabitha and Stephen King in 1974, I believe, stayed for the night just before it closed for winter, which led him to have a nightmare. I might as well talk about the Stanley Hotel now, and then we'll end up with the news, because, we're jumping around a lot. This is what we do. I'm not in the Ministry of Horror HQ, so I feel nervous. It's weird. And also, my wife is having a nap right behind the camera, so trying to be quiet and not wake her. But he stayed there for the night, and he found himself incredibly creeped out. They stayed in room 217, which became the 217 in the book. I think the name, I haven't got it to hand, but it was changed for the Stanley Kubrick adaptation, the one that he hates so much, which I think is a brilliant film. And I've read the book, and yes, there's differences, but every movie adaptation has differences. Anyway, the room they stayed in became the basis, the kind of the hub of the paranormal activity in the novel. And while staying in this room, he was awoken in the night with a nightmare, a vision of his son being chased by an unseen spirit down the long, empty hallways, based on his experiences of walking around an entirely empty hotel and finding himself unnerved and creeped out. I can imagine that. I go to any location, being a horror fan, horror buff, going to any location that should normally be populated by people every which way, and it being stone cold silent and empty, you kind of instantly get a feeling of being watched, being followed and creeped out. It's silly at the end of the day, but you can't help just feeling this unnatural feeling there. Again, speaking about jumping about, I must say right now, you may be seeing the hat here, says HM, Haunted Mansion, in Vegas, just off the strip in, can't remember what it's called, but about 10-minute drive out of the strip is Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum. Wow. I've been very much an on-again, off-again watcher of Ghost Adventures. My sister, Carrie, she loves it. She's a staunch believer. I'm very much an open-minded skeptic. And with any sort of paranormal show, you watch some episodes and think, oh, something's kind of creepy there. You watch another one and think, oh, this is just absolute guff. This is bullschnitzel. His film, though, Demon House, is pretty good, I will say that. Anyway, the Haunted Museum, we did the RIP tour. Again, socials will have some footage. At some point in the future, when I am back, I'm going to do a proper edit. So a lot of the footage that I've got, whether it's on my phone, whether it's on my camera, it will all be compiled together. But couldn't really do any filming inside the Haunted Mansion other than the entry room. Absolutely incredible. The RIP pass gave you additional exposure to certain things, but the overall tour, even if you don't want to get the RIP pass, which gives you a free lanyard, gives you a free t-shirt, the tour is like 2.5 hours long. Guided tour. If you're into true crime, there's a lot of true crime stuff there. I'm talking the cauldron that Ed Gein had, parts of Ed Gein's property, part of not Ted Bundy's brain, but John Wayne Gacy's brain. Creepy stuff, which is the true crime fan will get a kick out of, but also the supernatural stuff, haunted dolls, Dybbuk, I can't pronounce it, Dybbuk box, always get it wrong, and really creepy artwork, Al Capone's dresser and all this stuff. It's a full-on history tour, and there's a lot of things that I'd never even heard about. There was Dr. Dabrowski, whatever his name is, who was a doctor who did assisted suicides in America in his van, and God knows how many people he helped, quote unquote. That was really disturbing. And also this chap whose name, Barella, something like that. I instantly thought of a Criminal Minds episode of this guy who's stealing real estate people and electric shock volts and all this stuff. Horrible torture, clearly inspired by this chap that I'd never heard of. Anyway, I'm going off on a massive tangent, but speaking of hauntings, if you have any interest in that sort of stuff and you find yourself in Vegas, Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum is well worth the price of admission. It's really, really incredible. Anyway, we're going back to Stephen King very briefly. We'll jump into the horror news. There's not too much to talk about. But yeah, 1974 was when he checked in as the only guest. It wasn't the only guest, he was with Tabitha. I don't believe Joe was there at the time. Could be wrong. But that led for his inspiration for writing The Shining. Now, The Shining is arguably one of Stephen King's scariest novels. Funnily enough, as a Stephen King fan, he was the reason that I got into horror before then seeing John Carpenter's Halloween on TV. It was definitely the novels that first got me into the horror genre. It being the one that grabbed my attention because of the VHS cover, reading the book or attempting to read the book way too young. But really, in the overall fandom of Stephen King, it is generally known that, or generally considered, that The Shining or Pet Sematary are his scariest books. And I enjoy both of them. I wouldn't say they're the scariest. I'd say Salem's Lot. I'd say It is up there. I'd say some of his short stories, especially, like The Monkey and some of his Richard Bachman work. I'd probably say they're scarier in terms of that unnerving element. But yeah, his work really took off thanks to The Shining. I mean, Carrie was his first published novel, first film adaptation, but The Shining is what put him on the map. Now, I'm not entirely sure, I could well be wrong, but I'm not entirely sure that the Stanley Kubrick version was filmed here. I believe that some external shots may have been done here, but it was the later adaptation by... Let me get his information up because I do have that here. Stephen King Wiki. Here we go. I could edit all this out, but you know, we're going out for dinner in 43 minutes. So, oh my goodness, what is the director's name of the miniseries? 1997 miniseries, which apparently is very good. Apparently it's very faithful to the novel. Mick Garris. But I have to admit, a lot of the Mick Garris stuff I've seen, I do think is a little bit shonky. Not all of it, just the majority that I've seen. Mick Garris. Anyway, that was filmed here and is supposedly a much more faithful adaptation. I have seen that you've got that typical mid-90s, especially mid-90s Mick Garris, shonky made-for-TV CGI. Part of the novel, part of the terror in the novel, which is quite scary in the segments, is the topiary hedge maze with the various animals made, you know, from the hedges coming to life. It's quite a creepy couple of segments in the book, to be sure. Was dropped from the Stanley Kubrick version, most likely because there wasn't a way to do it without it looking shonky. And then about 20 or so years later, it looked shonky when it was adapted by Mick Garris. But I do appreciate trying to be more faithful. Sometimes the limitations of budget or technology at the time, what can you do? I normally think, don't do if it's going to look shit. But could be wrong. I haven't seen the miniseries, so I really shouldn't bash it too much. But that was shot on location here, to my knowledge. I'm going to keep saying that because I really don't fact check my stuff enough properly, so don't come at me. But later on this evening, and the reason I'm filming this now is because late this evening we are going on the Stephen King Shining tour, which I'm very looking forward to. My wife, I keep wanting to say fiance, she's not my fiance, she's my wife. My wife. She's not so much looking forward to it because she doesn't like getting scared. So she's a little bit nervous, but I'm very hyped for it. Unfortunately, unable to film that. And by the time it finishes, it's going to be kind of late, and we've got an early start tomorrow because we are off to Colorado Springs, which is going to be very exciting. Then on from there to Amarillo and a bunch of other places, which no doubt you'll find on the socials. But anyway, while we're here, I wanted to chat a little bit about Stephen King's The Shining and this incredible location. Yeah, thank you once again to the manager, the sales manager, can't remember. I won't name names, for giving us approval to fly the drone. That was a hell of a lot of fun. I was very, very nervous, and I think at one point I thought I probably should have raised the altitude a little bit more than I had. But on the whole, We've got some awesome footage. I'm very happy with it. So be sure to check it out on socials. Give it a like, give it a share. Also check out the TikTok. We're well over 700 followers now. It's incredible. We are on the road to 1,000. I did not expect us to increase the follower count while we're away, because I really haven't been able to put quite as much content on there or Instagram and Facebook as I would normally. But people are digging some of the stuff we've got on there. So thank you very much for giving us a follow. Make sure if you haven't already to hit follow, hit like, comment if you want, and share, repost. Right, it's now time for the horror news. I'm not going to do the jingle because I don't have the machine. And I'm filming this on my little travel vlog camera. So first up in the news, this comes from bloodydisgusting.com, as all my horror does. I will never give up. Jason Blum says Friday the 13th and Elm Street are still his white whales. John Squires writes, if Jason Blum had his way, he'd be acquiring all the big horror franchises like Infinity Stones. But while Blumhouse has generated multiple new franchises of their own, including Paranormal Activity, Insidious, The Purge, and The Black Phone, the only white whales that Blum has been able to get his hands on thus far are Halloween, which Blumhouse revived with the trilogy of tales chronicling the further adventures of Michael Myers, Laurie Strode, and Corey Cunningham, and The Exorcist, which has gotten off to a rocky start. I like The Exorcist, Believer. It's got a lot of faults, I'll give it that, but I think as a film on its own, as an exorcism horror, I think people shat on it too early. And I'm saying that as someone very critical of David Gordon Green's third part of his trilogy. I'll just say that. I've warmed to Kills, I think. Anyway, back to the news. And then there's Saw, which Blumhouse just boarded earlier this year. Blumhouse is bringing James Wan back in the fold to shepherd a new chapter for the Twisted franchise. What else is next now that Blumhouse has left Haddonfield behind? In a sprawling new conversation with Variety, Jason Blum has provided some insights into his franchise hopes. For starters, Blum has confirmed that Blumhouse indeed no longer has the rights to make Halloween movies. He explains, we don't own the rights anymore. I had a 3-picture deal, but I would do another Halloween movie. He also reveals that Blumhouse was recently in the mix to board the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, though A24 ultimately won the rights. We were in the mix. The deal isn't closed, but we probably won't get it, Blum admits. His other white whales on the horror front? Blum tells Variety in this week's new interview discussion, Friday the 13th and Freddy Krueger. Those are my 2 white whales. There's been no movement on the Elm Street franchise in many years, but the Friday the 13th saga is a different story. After years of messy legal issues, Jason Voorhees is back with his new Jason Universe initiative, with A24 and Peacock filming a prequel television series titled Crystal Lake and a new Friday the 13th movie reportedly in early development at this time. Stay tuned for more on all of the above horror franchises and Blumhouse's role in them. So, a new Saw film. I mean, I don't think we've run out of steam yet with the current chronology. I know it is jumping about a bit due to the interesting decision to kill off Jigsaw at part 3. But you know, as I've discussed a few times on this channel, when we did the rewatch of the entire series, and a few of them I hadn't seen before, I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a series that does actually work well binge watching, considering how grisly the content is. Texas Chainsaw Massacre going to A24. I'm interested to see what they can do with that. It is a franchise that, you know, I will always watch a Texas Chainsaw Massacre film, but it was really steeped into the realm of more bad than good, unfortunately. That's just the reality of the world we live in. But can A24 right that ship? Can't be any worse than some of them. I'm talking about Leatherface, the more recent one, not part 3, which is okay. Friday the 13th and Freddy Krueger. Well, Freddy Krueger, obviously, we had the messy remake. It's one of those things where you sort of feel you can't do it without Robert Englund, but Robert Englund himself has kind of retired from the character. He is, you know, entering his twilight years. So you kind of, if you're going to do it again, you need to do almost your own spin on it, or not try and replicate what Freddy became known for, the quips. I don't necessarily think there's not a way to do it, because I just think there is a difficulty there, because a lot of the other killers, your Michael Myers, your Leatherface, your Jason, generally silent other than grunts. Freddy, it's his personality along with the incredibly inventive kills. They didn't have the personality, unfortunately, and they didn't have the inventive kills in the remake. So, who knows? Who knows what they can do? I'm quietly optimistic. I do like Blumhouse. I think they do get a bit of a bad rap for just churning any old thing out, but they've got a lot of really good things, I would say. Friday the 13th, I mean, crap. Jeez, I'm not sold on this Jason universe malarkey. I thought the short film was just, okay, is this Jason's return? This looks worse than the fan film, and I've heard that some of the fan films are excellent. So I wouldn't be adverse to Blumhouse getting their hands on it. It will certainly be potentially a lot better than in the current hands, who are making, cider tie-ins as the Jason return that people don't want. Moving on. We'll just do a couple more because I'm conscious of my camera battery and also going out for dinner. The Revenge of La Llorona, The Curse of La Llorona sequel finally gets underway. Megan Navarro writes, a sequel to 2019's The Curse of La Llorona, titled The Revenge of La Llorona, is finally underway as production began this week in New York City. THR reports that Jay Hernandez and Monica Raymond, Eddie Ganem, Martin Fajardo, Axton Luca Porto, and Avi Porto join returning actor Raymond Cruz as Curandero Rafael Olvera for the sequel. The story sees to return the vengeful spirit La Llorona, forcing a fractured family to confront their past and join forces with their estranged grandfather to battle ancient evils and stop the weeping woman before she claims their children forever. Taking the directorial reins from The Curse of La Llorona's Michael Chavez is filmmaker Santiago Mangini, who made his feature debut of 2021 horror movie No One Gets Out Alive. James Wan, Gary Doberman, and Emil Gladstone are also back among the production team. Sean Tretter, who was working with Wan on the filmmaker's Creature from the Black Lagoon feature at Universal, wrote the script for The Revenge of La Llorona. Yeah, I mean, The Curse of La Llorona, it surprisingly did 123 million. But it was pretty forgettable, and it was one of those things where it was initially touted as part of the Conjuring universe. It has since been discounted as part of the Conjuring universe, and it's been established, I think, by Michael Chavez, that it has Conjuring universe Easter eggs, but it isn't a film in that franchise. Who cares? I love the Conjuring films. Curse of La Llorona, I do need to give it a rewatch. I just remember seeing it and thinking, kind of forgettable. One of those films where it focused too much on the jump scares without building the tension beforehand, or without the jump scares being ultimately very satisfying. We'll do a couple more and then we will end it. Influential horror anime Perfect Blue stalks Collector's Edition's 4K UHD in December. Oh dear. Alex DeVincenzo writes, influential Japanese anime film Perfect Blue will be released on 4K UHD and Blu-ray December 23rd via G-Kids. GKID's weird name. The 1997 animated psychological horror thriller has been remastered in 4K. The 3-disc collector's edition comes with a 128-page booklet, 10 art cards, and a quad poster. Ton of different interviews and trailers and whatnot. Rising pop star Mima has quit singing to pursue a career as an actress and model, but her films aren't ready to see her go. Her fans, I should say, I can't read. Encouraged by her managers, Mima takes on a recurring role in a popular TV show, when suddenly her handlers and collaborators begin turning up murdered. Harbouring feelings of guilt and haunted by visions of her former self, Mima's reality and fantasy meld into a frenzied paranoia. As her stalker closes in person and online, the threat he poses is more real than even Mima knows. All I can say about Perfect Blue is if you're someone that's never watched an anime or has no interest in anime, has preconceptions about anime, which aren't necessarily wrong, don't discount Perfect Blue. It is an incredible film. It's an incredible thriller that just so happens to be in the anime art style. It's so good. I've watched this. I've watched, Street Fighter 2, the animated film, which is incredible. I've watched things like Ninja Scroll and whatnot. Various other animes, and it's an art style that I've often tried to get into, but it just hasn't always necessarily clicked with me. Too many things are part of a 2,000 episode series run, or to watch this film you have to have first seen this TV series which follows a timeline adjacent to it. There's a lot going into it, and I don't have that time. I barely have time to watch my horror films, so I'm just checking how long is on this SD card. But if you enjoy a thriller film, if you've ever thought about watching an anime, or maybe you've watched animes and you're a fan, or not sure, Perfect Blue is well worth your time. Highly recommend it. I'll do a TikTok on it at some point. And then finally, in the horror news, there's also news that Art the Clown is in Fortnite, but I don't play Fortnite because it looks like garbage, in my opinion. Finally, in the horror news, original ending of Halloween Ends would have taken place inside a mask factory. This is written by John Squires. For many years, the most controversial installment in the Halloween franchise was Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. But with that oddball entry becoming more and more beloved as the years go on, the new world champion in that department may very well be Halloween Ends. Released in 2022, Halloween Ends was the final installment in David Gordon Green's legacy sequel trilogy, tasking itself with wrapping up the Michael Myers and Laurie Strode story, while also introducing a brand new shape in the mix with Rowan Campbell's Corey Cunningham. The character and his role in Halloween Ends proved divisive, to say the least, but most fans looking for one thing and one thing only from Halloween Ends, a satisfying conclusion to the Laurie and Michael saga that began in 1978 with John Carpenter's original slasher classic. A final battle that few films before it, including Halloween 2018, had claimed to be. But Halloween Ends, it may well have finally made good on the promise. Halloween Ends comes to a close with Laurie killing Michael Myers once and for all. Spoilers. A thing she's also done a couple of times before, and feeds his corpse into an industrial shredder while the town of Haddonfield watches on with solemn approval. It's essentially a hopeful ending for Laurie, who will presumably be able to now finally get back to some semblance of normal life. Outside of the nightmares about feeding her not brother into industrial shredder, of course. But the original endings to Halloween Ends would have been a bit different in the wake of Michael's disposal. As Jamie Lee Curtis notes in the new book Horror's New Wave, 15 Years of Blumhouse, one original ending took us into a mask factory, while another would have quite literally had the evil from Michael Myers enter the body of Laura Strode. No, seriously. The original ending of Halloween Ends, originally titled Halloween Dies, was a scene in a mask factory, JLC explains. You see a conveyor belt of masks being manufactured. They're Michael Myers masks, which was saying we're all monsters if we put on the mask. It's not just Michael. It's all of us, if we wear the mask. And yet somehow it didn't satiate. I think it was too intellectual for this finale. It was a big swing, and I honour and support the big swing. She continues, there was also an ending which we explored and filmed a sort of transference between Laurie and Michael. In the final killing of Michael, Laurie almost became him. In this second of glory, taking the life of Michael Myers, she became Michael Myers. She has to go away at that point. She has to revert back to the Laurie we met in the first film. She has to isolate herself for the rest of her life because she now has a piece of Michael in her. But it was too dark and too profound to satisfy the hunger of this 40-year journey. And we changed it to this procession where the town of Haddonfield quietly bears witness to the end of Michael. Then Laurie goes back to her house for the final scenes. It was Jamie Lee Curtis who insisted upon the happy ending between Laurie and Frank on the front porch outside Laurie's house in Haddonfield, intended to, in her own words, give hope that they're going to end up in Japan and that Laurie's going to get a shot at life. And then, well, the shape makes one last appearance. Sort of. The very last shot of Halloween Ends shows the Michael Myers mask sitting on a coffee table in Laurie's house, suggesting that she can never fully move past her own personal boogeyman. I think there was an ambiguity to it, intentionally. I don't even remember that bit. Jamie Lee Curtis explains in Horror's New Wave, 15 Years of Blumhouse. I think it has the same effect that the original idea for the mask factory spewing out Michael Myers masks would have had. Would that have been a silver shamrock mask factory, perhaps? Halloween Ends is, after all, the Halloween 3 Season of the Witch of David Gordon Green's trilogy. A mask that spreads evil around a town on Halloween night. Now, where have we heard that one before? There we go. Yeah, I mean, would it have improved the film? I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily have minded the idea of the Michael Myers masks having that sort of talking point of, if we wear the mask, are we as evil as him? But then again, they tried those themes. I don't really think they worked in the film, where people were blaming Laurie for the crimes of Michael and this evil sickness sweeping through the town. Was he supernatural or not? There's the point when he kind of powers up, which is ridiculous. Anyway, would you have preferred that ending for Halloween Ends? Halloween Dies? Are you a fan? And you hate my opinion on it, which is fair enough. I think I've probably got a bit of altitude sickness because we are very high up and we've also had a couple of drinks. So I will leave it at that. Thank you very much. I can't even talk. Thank you very much for listening or watching Ministry of Horror. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, like, share the videos, whatnot. Check us out on podcast platforms, Apple Podcast, Spotify, various others. Be sure to also check out social media. TikTok, blowing up. Instagram, Facebook. Occasionally on X, normally if I'm about to stream, but that won't be happening for the next month. Give us a follow on all those platforms and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.